Carolyn Broomhead. I'm the Research Community Manager. So I work specifically with the 4 research centers at the New York Public Library. As George mentioned, the circulating statistics, clearly the people of Roosevelt Island are already making use of the wonderful circulating collections, and undoubtedly some people are using the research centers as well. But you may not know fully the breadth of our collections, which rank with the national libraries, great national libraries, and the Library of Congress, the British National Library. They rank along those sides in terms of the scope and the breadth and the depth of collections as well. But for me, that's not what makes the New York Public Library's research side the greatest in the world. The thing that makes it the greatest in the world is that, unlike other research libraries, we actively invite everyone to come in and use our collections. And we are engaging in programs and outreach to encourage first-time users to come in and make sure that everybody knows how the collections can enrich their professional lives or their personal lives, and make sure that they can easily and comfortably access the ever-changing world of information. So I'm glad that a few people have already mentioned the importance of books, because I think that's where I'd like to start tonight. The first thing, I'd like to talk about is what you'd expect to see at a research library, right? So this is a rather dusty-looking, large, perhaps dull item. It's just says Roosevelt Island on the side, but this is an amazing example of why the research libraries are important to the city as a whole. The full title is The Heritage of Roosevelt Island. It was actually written by a New York Public Library librarian, and it's the one book that I could find in the world, using the World Library Catalog, that charts where all of the public documents are relating to the history of Roosevelt Island and its incorporation. We have one copy, and the New York Historical Society has another copy. The interesting thing for me, when I read it, the author, a woman called Susan Wade, called out her reason for writing this book, and she said it was to collect all of the documents in one place so that the citizens of Roosevelt Island, who are having an increasing role in the direction of their community, could access the information in one place and move forward and make informed decisions. So, something to think about as you're going ahead, that if you want to know about the history of the island in order to make informed decisions about its future, the New York Public Library is a great place to start. In fact, you can start with the history of Blackwells Island itself, right? So, and I'm sure I'm telling you things that a lot of you already know. We have documentation from the Blackwells family's first mortgage. So the transition from this as a farming island with private landowners to a city island, this is the first mortgage. It was written in 1792. You can see, you probably can't see at the top, it's an indenture agreement. So we have the portion from the Blackwell family, and the mortgage giver has the other portion, and they kind of fit together. That was the way you knew that it was a valid document back in the day, that the cuts fit together. You can see it's old, it's creased. This is held in our Manuscripts and Archives division. If anyone is interested, you can walk up and buzz on the door, and you might have to wait 20 minutes for it to be retrieved from its box, but you can come up and see it. Obviously interesting for historians of economic history, but also interesting just generally for people interested, for students and for local historians. We have then documents that chart the transition to Welfare Island. I like this story in particular because it reminded me of the origin of the word welfare. So if you go back to the 1490s, welfare related to the happiness, health, and well-being of individuals, or the provision of those things. So the story you're looking at here is from the 1820s. You may not be able to see the title, but it is former Hungarian violin virtuoso gives recitals on Welfare Island. So the story goes that an 84-year-old man was petitioning a judge to be given a spot here in the city home because he had just had to sell his violin. It was his last possession of worth, and he had nowhere else to go. This was picked up by the media of the day, and after that report, donations flooded in, including a violin. So he came to Roosevelt Island, to the city home here, and then he gave recitals and concerts and everything from folk tunes to small operas, apparently. And so it's just an example, I suppose, of the history of community that you may not expected to find before the planned community in the 1970s. We also have documentation from that period. So you may recognize on the right-hand side, this is the plotting of Lighthouse Park in 1975. To the left, that document actually tells you the flowers and the bushes that were planted in Lighthouse Park. So for anyone interested in what was planted there originally, if you wanted to recreate that there or in your own back garden, we have that information. So as you can see, the types of information we have here, not just for scholars, not just for researchers, although as far as I'm concerned, if you're interested in coming and looking at any of this, that makes you one of our researchers. I would just mention that we have 4 research sites that you can come and see. The manuscripts and archives that you've seen are from the large historic building, the People's Palace on 42nd Street, the Stephen A. Schwarzman building. We also have 3 sites that specialize in different subjects. The Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem, the Science, Industry, and Business Library at 34th Street, and the Library for Performing Arts at Lincoln Center, where we also have the Meredith Monk papers. I don't know if any of you remember the Meredith Monk performances that took place on Roosevelt Island, but we have the documentation of those as well. The e-resources, the newspaper article that I pointed out, that came from our electronic resources. Those are all available through the branch libraries. They're a great resource for students of all ages, from elementary school onwards, and the great part about that is that the librarians are so helpful in accessing that information. And then finally, because I work in a research library and because I have a background in teaching, which I can't quite squash, I'd like to set you all a homework task. We have an incredible digital collections website. So if you Google Digital Collections NYPL, you get our portal to find out everything that we have digitized. There are 164 items that come up if you search for Roosevelt Island. If you search for Roosevelt Island Lighthouse to take a look at what happened in this area, you just get the one. So I'd be happy to talk to you more in the back later or answer any questions that you may have. And now I'll turn over to Joanna Pesca to talk about the capital project.